Dear students, we are in the 13th week of the course on Sociology of India, Paper 1. In this module, we are going to discuss Islam and Islamization in India. India is a country that follows secularism and follows a secular democratic republic form of government. Here in India, the term secular means that Indian government is not bound to any particular religious faith and does not have an official religion. Discrimination based on religion is not allowed and Indian citizens have the freedom to follow any religion. The Constitution treats all the religion equally. The situation of Indian religion is complex as the country follows various faiths. There are many religions being followed and within them there is n number of faith and sects supplemented by many historical reasons and occurrences. The followers of the same religion are not at all similar and they practice varied customs, rituals and traditions. Hence, religion and its religious components are to be dealt with and have to be understood in the proper way to get the big picture of the study of sociology of India. As a part of it, we are looking into the major religions followed in India, whereas in the last week modules, we dealt with Hinduism, which is followed by most of the people in India. This week, we are going to have a more comprehensive knowledge on Islam. Islam as a religion does not have its roots in India. It was one of the faiths that arrived here from abroad at different points in time during the last 2 millennia. Hinduism and Islam are the two major religions in India and their thoughts have been supposed to be developed with mutually exclusive norms. Their social interaction is presumed to have been more scrunch than cooperative, more hostile than coexistence. A well-known fact of Indian history was that in Indian society, since the advent of the Turks and the rise of Muslim population in this land happened because of two processes. For Misra, they are Islamization, referring to converting Muslim groups, and indigenization as a reference to immigrant Muslim ones. This seemed to be particularly significant in pre-British period and which have had a formative impact on Muslim ethos, Muslim societal forms and Muslim culture. In this model, we can have a discussion on Introduction to Islam, Islamization in India through conversion, indigenization through the immigration process and an overall outline on Islamization in India. To start with, we can see the historical background of Islam and how it came to India. Saudi Arabia was the originating point of Islam and those who followed this faith were called Muslims. In the 7th century AD, Arab traders came to India for their trade and it was during that period the influence of Islamic tradition in India was sensed. Even in the pre-Islamic period, the Arab traders had contact with the western seaboard of India, that is, the Mappilas of Kerala was born of mixed marriages of Arab men and Malayali women. And they were considered to be the one who brought the Islamic faith to India. Then, at the beginning of the 10th century AD, the western part of India remained as the way through which invasion happened. And simultaneously, the foundation of the Delhi Sultanate also occurred, which led to the expansion of Islamic existence in India. In addition to political and state initiatives, the Sufis played an important role in the spread of Islam in medieval India. The role of Sufis in the process of Islamization in India will be dealt with in the next module, where we will be discussing the sister order and other orders' role in the spread of Islam in India. Islam, an introduction. Islam as a religion originated in present Saudi Arabia and the term Islam literally means submission to God. The architect of Islam was Prophet Muhammad during the period of 571 to 632 AD. His native was Mecca, which is situated in Arabia, and he moved to Medina because he did not receive the support that he desired. In Medina, he established the first ever Islamic state. Muslims, also known as the submitters, adhered to stated and universally binding Islamic principles. The Quran, the holy book of Islamic tradition, is the text that is read and recited and is recognized as the word of God, and they must affirm both of these truths. Now we can see some of the basic beliefs in Islam. Tawheed, believe in one unique, incomparable God. God is the creator, ruler of universe, and who sustains everything. The second belief they had is existence of angels of God, and they are the honored creatures. Then they believed in God's revealed books. They also believe in prophets and messengers of God. They had the belief of judgment day and the life after death. God's authority over human destiny was also their belief. In Islam, every person has two types of obligations. The first one is the obligation to God, which is called as ibadat. The second one is to the society, which is called as muamala. Islam upholds a stringent moral code that forbids behaviors such as adultery, drinking, murder, suicide, and other similar acts. On the other hand, Islam promotes love, brotherhood, and respect for all people. Islam did not propagate stratification on the basis of caste or race. Idol worship is not found in Islam and forbids deity worship too. The Islamic place of worship is known as a masjid or mosque. According to Islamic tradition, every true Muslim should follow the 5 pillars. We can see one by one. The first one is every Muslim should recite the creed, which affirms the oneness of God and the inevitability of Muhammad's prophethood. Then the second one is praying, which is called as namaz, at the appointed time, that is 5 times in a day. Then keeping the fast, observe the yearly month of fasting to burn away the sins for all Muslims above 11 years of age during the holy month of Ramadan. Alms giving, giving 2.5% of one's yearly savings as charity to the needy persons. If circumstances allow, pilgrimage to Mecca once in the lifetime so as to be there on Idul Azha. These are considered to be the 5 pillars of Islam. It is based on 5 pillars of principal acts of faith. As Muhammad preached, faith in Allah, a true Muslim is the one who says from the heart that there is no God but Allah, with Muhammad as the messenger. Islam is based on the principle God is the only one and the Muhammad is the last prophet. In Islam, it is believed that God, Allah, for the purpose of guiding people in the right direction, has sent numerous prophets to the world irrespective of time and place. Prophets of other religions like Christianity and Judaism are believed. Prophet Muhammad, the founder of Islam and the messenger of Allah, is regarded as the last of all prophets who brought back the original purity of Islam. Now we can see how Islam takes its role in India. Islamization in India can be traced to the Muslim world's contact with South Asia. The connection through trade link between Arabia and India on the southwestern Malabar coast was age-old. There were several assumptions in Malabar where there was a claim from the Muslims in terms of their descent from the Hindu king Cheraman Perumal of Malabar. King Cheraman Perumal embraced Islam after observing the wonders of Muhammad Prophet. A similar claim was there from the Tamil-speaking community too, who had the mosque which was old and might have been constructed during the lifetime of Prophet. In the mid-7th century, Muslim armies reached the Hindu Kush and later Sindh region was attacked to establish the Arab dynasty in India. Thus, the Arab, being the land of Islam origin, had travelled through different parts of India and started its process of religious conversion. Now we can see Islamization through conversion. While explaining what conversion is, we can say it is a process by which there is a complete change from one religion to another, along with its ritual and beliefs, can be known as conversion. The change that happens through conversion has its impact on the individual, the family, and the entire society. Conversion is not a recent phenomenon. It has happened for ages. Here in India, religious conversion was there for quite a long period of time, and issues related to it are discussed and argued every now and then. They are sometimes controversial too. But here in this model, we are going to see how Islam as a religion enters India through the process of conversion. Now we can see how Eaton viewed religious, particularly the Islamic conversion in India, through his book on religious movements in South Asia, which was published in the year 2004. There are several theories related to the conversion to Islam. Of that, Eaton gave 3 theories that are predominantly highlighted. The first one is the religion of sword theory, which was considered to be the oldest of all. This theory argues that Indian Muslims who were forcibly converted generally failed to define either force or conversion. The religious conversion happened in society just because of putting the sword in the neck. This theoretical perspective was questioned as if military or political force worked for conversion to Islam during the rule of Muslims, it would have been heaviest, particularly in the areas under their rule for a longer period of time. The second theory is political patronage. Theory which tried to explain Islamic conversion as happened among the Indians for the reason of receiving favors and measures from the ruling class that are non-religious. This occurred during the period of medieval. The favors expected by the converted include relief from taxes, promotion in the bureaucracy, and so forth. Several occasions in the history of India go in tune with this theoretical view, like conversion during Khilji Sultans and Delhi Sultanate, etc. In the upper part of India, there were occasions when landholding families of medieval declared themselves Muslims. They did this to escape imprisonment for non-payment of revenue, and they also did it to preserve ancestral property and their family pride. Another form of political patronage happened for employment to work under the Muslim rulers. Gradually they converted themselves to Muslim. Hence, for political benefication, through the process of acculturation, Islam conversion occurred in India. This theory is also criticized for the reason it commits the misconception of understanding the values of the present into the peoples or events of the past. The third theoretical view regarding Islamic conversion in India was accretion and reform. Mass conversion to Islam was a very gradual process involving 2 discernible aspects, accretion and reform. Eaton divides this process into 2 sub-processes, that is accretion, another one is reform. He considered that the simplest model of the conversion movement would be started with accretion and end with reform. The 2 aspects oscillate back and forth in accordance with the need of the situation. In the accretion aspect of the conversion process, the feature of Islam is loosely defined in terms of social organization. There were no strict rules in the practice of rituals of both religions. Other than ritual methods, social integration is also maintained. In the process of conversion in the accretion aspect, the members are not clear regarding their community practice and affiliation, whereas in the reform aspect of conversion, there will be a strict distinction perceived socially. The members of the group practiced Muslim rituals and did not participate in non-Muslim rituals and adapted Islamic inheritance. It adopts Islamic marriage patterns which were regarded as incest by many Hindus. The prevalence of such practices is in tune with Islamic tradition, which can be made evident to the Muslim community. This conscious adherence to social and ritual action is a model that is not in the ambit of own ancestral features. There were socio-political differences between accretion and reform in the conversion process. In the mass conversion, that is accretion, the course of action of amalgamation was in the periphery to expand the boundary. The regional context was the base for which integration, that is a region in India. It can be the 14th century Tughlaq's power extension in Punjab, the Bahmani kingdom into 15th century Deccan, or the Mughal empire into 16th century Bengal. To understand conversion among religions, Islamic conversion, we should know the basis of religion, which is an institution having a cultural pattern in the interaction process and has culturally assumed superhuman beings. Eaton gave 3 sets of symbols that are unique to Islamic tradition. One set of symbols refers to man's identity in relation to the superhuman beings. Changes in the names of those superhuman organizations with which humans engage reflect socio-religious identities just as they do in the changes to personal names. Furthermore, it is this index that most vividly separates the conversion processes, accretion and reform components. The second set of symbols refers to the identity of superhuman beings in relation to man, that is, man's names for the gods. Islamic poets were laying the intellectual foundations for their readers to have a bond with Islam. They did it by corresponding to the cognitive ideas of Islam and the local tradition, which helped them in the identification. The process of identification is one of the hallmarks of the accretion aspect of conversion. The third set of symbols refers to the identity of the sacred places in which the interaction takes place, as in mosques. This index of growing Islamization consists of changes in the identity of the sacred place in which religious interaction takes place. The village qadi or judge is one of the important people that went along with the establishment of Muslim administrations as the local authorities who can exercise their power. They were a significantly more powerful agent in the conversion process. Although the saint's tomb and the qadi played significant roles in the process of Islamization, we are still left with the confusing issue of the geography of conversion. Though the 3 sets of symbols did not directly address the conversion movement, they can be used as indexes that can help in the plotting of the geographical and chronological expansion of Islam in India. Apart from these 3 theoretical views of conversion, there was another assumption known as the religion of social liberation thesis. This view suggests that the basis for conversion was to improve the status and to enjoy a better position in the social hierarchy, where hierarchy was institutionalized in the Indian social structure in terms of the Hindu religion. Indigenization through the immigration process. So far, we have seen a brief account of how conversion toward Islamic tradition took place in India. Now we can see, as stated by S.C. Mishra, how Islam was indigenized through the process of immigration. Indigenization is an unconscious process that implies the social process of adaptation. The Indians and their environment influenced the immigrant Muslim groups. This created a change and modification in the lives of the people behaviorally. These adaptations overlooked the intra-regional variations. There was an acceptance of customs and manners, way of life and peculiar characteristics of the region. There was the immigration of many thousands of Turks, Afghans and Iranians into the subcontinent from the 13th century onward, and they slowly grow Muslim communities as a result of intermarriages between Muslim men and non-Muslim women. There was a race consciousness immigration where immigrant people entered India with a different faith to understand the Indian social structure. They share the belief of high birth and have self-ennobling doctrine. This ascribed status was cherished by pre-Mughal and the Mughal nobility, which was reflected in the 18th century in the contours of the party and pressure group formation in the courts. Though the social structures of upper class Muslim groups were specified by birth, they were not strictly endogamous where intermarriages were possible. There was a sync between the indigenization of upper class Muslim groups and the Islamization of converted Muslim groups. This process can be comprehended from the local context in tune with the economic and status group parallel to the emergent system. For instance, in Gujarat, in the traditional setting, there was a similarity between the rights, particularly marriage and birth, between parallel communities in both religious systems. The social system that emerged from immigration and conversion are stratified on the basis of both ascribed and achieved status. In the achieved context, class and cultural privilege can be viewed where the gap is wider between both social systems. Indigenization was seen in both sections, but it was to a greater extent among the immigrant Muslims community. The cultural aspect of upper class was nearer to the sources of Islamic culture, whereas the lower strata Muslims had the faith attached to the popular forms of the local culture. Popular Islam happened due to conversion shared aspects like successions, the societal framework, and even superstitious beliefs, etc., which was not there in upper class Islam. Social stratification, endogamy, early marriages, patriarchy, joint family, kin expectations, and kinship were some of the common characteristic features of Muslim society in India, particularly in rural India. Now we can see Islamization in India in a general purview. While discussing indigenization and Islamization in Indian setting, Mishra stated that Islamization as a process come to be closely associated with an effort to rise on the societal scale. The Muslim system lacks the rigid characteristics of Hindu caste order, which follows sanctions and punishments. The Islamic tradition has a comparatively easier process. In the middle and lower middle classes, however, in the recent years, while economic well-being is the first prerequisite, Islamization has been a necessary step for any rise upwards. According to Momin, Islamization has been used in two major senses. It refers to the tendency of Indian Muslims to reject traditions, customs, and the characteristics that are seen as being against Islam. It alludes to the historical process by which numerous Hindu castes and communities appropriated Muslim cultural traits like clothes, eating habits, and customs. The Kayasthas, Khatris, and Pandits of Kashmir and the Amils of Sindh are said to have Islamized themselves this way. Islamization in India did not take place evenly throughout the country, with Muslims following the same lifestyle. The various Muslim groups settled in India have diverse lifestyles, and their way of life cannot be equated with the Islamic one. The Islamization process in Indian context needs some cultural and religious factors. These factors are rooted in the broader religious or pan-Islamic identity in the Muslim social structure in India. Islamization as a term in sociological context is significant as the process of Islamization through its historical background is still continuing in Muslim social structure in India. For example, as given by Momin, it can be observed among the Meos of Rajasthan. In the 15th century, the Meos were converted to Islam and they continued practicing the Rajput tradition. Whereas after independence, their search for identity awakened, they let go the Hindu practices and started following only the Islamic way by building new mosques, changing their way of life like dressing, food habits, etc. Agarwal, who has studied the changing pattern of Mio's social life, says that it is not at all an exaggeration to say that the Mios have adapted more of Islamic practices in the last 17 years than they had in the previous 450 years. Islamization as a process involves mobility, which is economic as well as social. The expected mobility was to raise the status of the individual in the social and economic hierarchy. To reach the higher or better strata in the hierarchy of Islamic social structure of India, they are expected to adapt the evident Islamic customs and practice of the high caste Muslims. The thinkers like Mainz rightly stated an approach that perceives Islamization as a cultural phenomenon rather than a structural one. Mainz, in his study of Islamization among Muslims of Tamil Nadu, observed a harmonious relationship between the Muslim Tamils and their Hindu neighbors for centuries. But in recent years, because of several reasons, there was a cultural change that differentiated them from their fellow Hindu neighbors. In the Islamization process, a distinct ethnic community emerged specific to the Muslim communities in Tamil Nadu. He points out that contrary to how ethnicity is typically interpreted as a response to the demands of the political and economic competition, Muslim ethnicity in Tamil Nadu has developed in response to the internal demands of maintaining religious identity. Indian Islam is a reflection of Indian society. Indian social and cultural environment is to be studied to understand Islam and Muslim rule and the process of Islamization in India. The plurality and the heterogeneity found in the Indian subcontinent are reflected in each and every aspect of India. Thus, in religion, it mirrored. Islam, a faith outside the country, had its grounding in India and formed the second largest religion in the country. But it does not have a uniform spread all over India, and there were several regional variations. The spread of Islam was carried mainly by the movement called as Sufism. The Sufi movement was organized in 12 orders or silsilas. Of these 12, 4 main orders were practiced in India, and their role in spreading Islam in India was significant. We can talk about in detail about these orders in the next module. To sum up, the module started with the basic introduction to Islam. Then we saw how Islam came to India with 2 significant aspects as conversion and immigration. Immigration can be traced back to the 7th and the 8th centuries. In terms of conversion, there were several theoretical explanations. As given by Eaton, we have seen his popular accretion and reformation approach. In the accretion aspect of conversion, the people added new deities or superhuman agencies to their existing cosmological stock, or identify new deities or agencies with existing deities. In the reform dimension, the group not only resists the participation in non-Muslim rituals but also adopts Islamic inheritance, customs to be part of the Muslim community and separated themselves from other communities. Then we discussed Islamization in the backdrop of migrated Islam and the converted Islam, and how it twinned and how its nature and characteristics changed over a period of time. Finally, we started with Sufism, and the detailed discussion of Sufism and the orders of Islam in India will be dealt with in the next module. Thank you.